Welcome to the Maverick Mindset, a podcast where we sit down with operators behind the most influential consumer companies of our time. On this show, we'll move past the stories you've already heard and uncover the bold moments that truly shape their journey. I'm Natalie, I'm a partner at Maverick, and today I'm sitting down with Kat Cole, CEO of AG1. Let's get started. Kat, welcome to the show. I am so fired up to have you here. Kat Cole is the CEO of AG1. I have taken incredible inspiration from your career and the learnings that you've shared. And I want to start at the beginning of your career, which for you was in your teens. It was such an early, sort of rise from 15 to your hostess, I think at 18 at Hooters, 19 a waitress. At 26, you're, a pretty senior executive. You've been opening these franchises in Argentina and Australia, and sort of in that hyper growth kind of career period, was there a tension between outpacing the environment that you grew up in?
Yeah, I started work when I was a very young teenager, and then more like W-2 proper work when I was 15. And so I was working in malls and cleaning gym equipment when I was 15 and 16. When I was 17, I became a hostess at Hooters. At 18, I became a waitress. At 19, I started traveling around the world to open franchises, and eventually took a corporate job at the age of 20 and dropped out of college because I was traveling so much I was failing. I don't recall that ever being on my radar. But there were little micro moments where I could feel the responsibility shift from being a peer to a leader. I was a waitress, and now I'm a waitress and a shift leader. I was a director, and now I'm the vice president in the company. And so when that happens and we're all still there, but we're in different roles, those are the moments where I remember being confronted with people who would go, well, you were just one of us. Now you're the leader.
Yep.
You're asking us to do things differently.
Yep.
Wow, you didn't do them any differently. And needing to think, I have a few choices. One is I could let the confrontation of my past peer role keep me from doing the job I'm supposed to do as a leader. The other path which is the path I chose, which would be to acknowledge, I was your peer. We did do things this way. That wasn't right or best. Now I'm responsible for the work getting done. So this is what I'm asking you or telling you to do. This is what we need to do. I'll still help. I'll still lead by example. I'll still show the things I should have done then that I'm doing now and asking you to do now. But that's all in service of better work, better outcome. And that's when you can feel that anchor drag of your past and your peers pulling, trying to keep you in a place of the same performance level, when really a new role and a new responsibility is an opportunity and a requirement to elevate the practices of the roles you're now leading.
And it's a respect of the past, acknowledging the past, and that you were in those shoes before, but frankly, setting the expectation that, things are going to be a little bit different. Even just calling that out is powerful.
Yeah, I think it was also, what is my role? Is my role to be your friend? And when you're someone's peer, it feels more friend-like.
Right.
Now I have a new role where, of course, I'd still like to be friendly and collegial and have things be mostly positive and happy. But I'm also very clear on what my new role and responsibilities are. And that's a testament to the training I was given, the communication of what was expected of me in a new role, and my willingness to commit more to what is expected of me with new responsibility than feel beholden to the friendships or the expectations of my past.
You mentioned sort of training and expectations that were given to you. I would say I think you far exceeded some of the maybe expectations that were given. How did you know, though, kind of what good, great, exceeding expectations. I mean, so much of your career has felt like there wasn't a clear playbook, or there wasn't a clear kind of what good looks like. How did you know? How do you know what good looks like? How did you know what great looks like? And then I think in many cases, you sort of exceeded the bar and paved a completely new path for yourself.
And it felt pretty obvious because I'm listening to the customer and the team members, and then adding in my experience with other leaders. And some leaders give you examples of what you absolutely don't want to do or who you absolutely don't want to be. And so I had plenty of examples of good and bad,
Yep.
where I demonstrated positive exceptions. So not just doing the bad and doing the existing good.
Yep.
Would be when I deeply connected to customers and team members. So team members would tell me this is in our way, or this makes our job hard. And I would take extra steps to remove friction and improve their ability to deliver on their work. Those were the times where I would exceed the playbook. Yep. Because I wasn't following a established norm. I was listening to the customer today, to the employee today, with today's technology. And then staying very close to that allowed me to do things that wouldn't have been in a playbook, or that I might not have seen in a past managerial example.
How are you able to stay so close, particularly when the scale of both employee and customers is just huge?
Yeah, at Focus Brands, when I was president and COO, we had, close to 100,000 employees if you combine our global franchise system, and certainly millions of customers per day. So the discipline is having enough frequency and enough representation of the different types of customers and the different types of employees and the different experiences they have, for it to indicate, signal, to then go dig deep. Of course, when I'm in a single restaurant, I can talk to almost all the customers and almost all the employees.
Yep.
But then when I'm opening many restaurants around the world, of course, that's not true. And so there are ways to stay close to those who are close, to get some feedback loops. My calendar reflects this as a priority: regular one-on-ones and skip levels with different team members, regular conversations with customers over Zoom, on the phone. When we launch nationally in retail, I am in that retailer sampling and talking to customers and just standing there, by the display. And not just me, my team, my leaders. It's a cultural imperative. So you solve for the scale by it not just being you, that there are other people who embody this idea of staying close to the customer, close to the employee, pulling those more qualitative insights together with proper quant work that help you match what you're hearing and what you're feeling and what you're sensing to what's actually happening in a transaction pattern, or in something else you can see in the data that help rank and prioritize options, resources, and activities.
I think, frankly, a lot of brands talk about staying close to their customer, but it is a practice, it is an intention, it is a system. I think of Sam Walton in his early days of building Walmart. He got his pilot's license so he could visit, 3 different stores in one afternoon. And
commitment.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going there, but it's commitment.
Right. Yeah, no, it's commitment. But I think it's being close to your customer requires, I think, and sometimes extreme behavior or such intentionality, because it's easy to get distracted or just focus on other items. In watching sort of your career, you've leaned in on some hard times. You mentioned you admire leaders that stood tall. At Hooters, there was an opportunity, I think, for you to leave. You had a lucrative offer. The company was going through a restructuring. Cinnabon, different scenario, but Great Recession, difficult time for mall brands. But you made the decision, like, repeatedly in your career, to lean into the harder thing. You think about the leader that you've become. How have those moments shaped kind of who you are as a leader today?
Yeah, I was at Hooters as a company for over 14 years. but within that, easily 10 different roles. And I was at Focus Brands for 10 years. And within that, 3 different distinct C-suite eras.
Yep.
And now I've been with AG1 for over 4 years. And yet, when you're with a company that is growing over that amount of time, the company itself is a different company many times over in that window. Then as you move through different levels of leadership and different functionalities, those are also almost like they're different jobs, they're different eras. They're just,
Right.
Under the same entity umbrella. And yes, there were times in each of those where I was recruited to do something different, to leave, that had its own advantages potentially. But anytime I have an opportunity to do something different, either because I'm wondering, should I do something different, or I am presented with an opportunity to consider, I think 2 things. One, is my work done here? It's my first question. Is my work done here? Whatever that means at that moment. Do I feel my work is done here? I've done all I can to make an impact, to make a difference. And then the second question is, could someone else do a better job for what the company needs next? So the first question was about me. Is my work, is my desire, is my impact and influence? This is about the company. Could someone else do what the company needs, not now, next, better than I can? If the answer to both of those is yes, I should definitely go. And if there's not an immediate opportunity to go, I should facilitate someone else coming in. But if the answer to one of the questions is no, then in line with my values, this is still where my next best opportunity is. Either I have to change the work or change the influence, or I need to change myself for what the company needs and how I'm prioritizing my time. And so any existing company, especially if you're a high potential individual with a desire to learn, with a willingness to fail and put yourself out there, and there's growth, there are many opportunities within a single company, many careers.
Yep.
So much growth because you have an advantage. You have an unfair advantage. You know the business, you know the systems.
Yeah.
In my case, I'd worked every job from the ground up. Certainly there are disadvantages. People see you as you were because they've had more historical reference with you and you have to overcome that. But I focused on the advantages. Like, why would I go start over if I have traction and advantage and reputation and relationship and growth opportunity? So I found that over and over. And until the answer to both of the questions was, yes, my work is done and someone else could do a better job. Therefore, it is time for me to go somewhere else where my work will just be starting and I am the person to do what the company needs next.
Talk to me about the decision to join AG1. You started as an advisor, really wonderful way to get to know the company, the team, the product, but a much smaller company than what you had traditionally worked at. What got you excited about the opportunity at AG1?
Well, my first role with the company was I was a customer for 2 years.
Right.
And that is a huge difference maker in an opportunity. If you yourself are the target, a fan, a user, it cuts through so much of what would otherwise be a very cold considered opportunity. So for 2 years, I was a customer. I had challenges with my gut health and energy and some of the outward manifestations of that, hair, skin, and nails. And I was taking all these separate pills and powders. I was going to Whole Foods. I was going to, these pharmacies and natural stores and hearing about something or reading about it. I'm like, oh, I'll take that probiotic. And oh, what about this whole food superfood powder, since I don't eat enough vegetable diversity and I need a multivitamin, I need that. And one day my husband just said, half the stuff's expired and you travel so much, you don't stick with it. And he recommended AG1 and then called Athletic Greens. It was really big in the endurance community because it's so simple and high quality and comprehensive. And he's like, stop everything and try this. And I did. And it made an enormous and fairly immediate difference within weeks. Less bloating, more energy. I could feel the difference. I digested food better. And so I was just a fan. I was a fan and I thought the company was tiny. the company was small compared to the giants that I had run, but it wasn't tiny. And so the founder heard me on a few podcasts, reached out, asked for me to advise him because the company was growing so quickly. And I was so excited. I thought, oh, I'm a fan. I'm such a fan. And of course, I'm in an advisory chapter of my career. I just left Focus Brands after 10 years, wanted to focus on my kids who I had later in life, 39 and 41. And I'd been working since I was 17. So I felt like I'd earned a little bit of a more flexible window. And so he called and said, will you give me some advice? I thought, of course, I love this product. It would be my joy. This is literally what I'm doing with my time right now, advising, investing, and helping people with frameworks for difficult decision-making during high growth and complex eras. And so I started advising him. And after a few months, he applied the advice and it worked, applied, it worked. And then he, like any great founder, started luring me in. Come help me build this. Come help me build this. You're a customer. You get it. You appreciate it. You have what we need. Come help me build this. And for a minute, I thought it's pretty small comparative. And, but very quickly, and my husband was a mirror for me. He's like, you're already acting like you run this company. You're already a customer. You love the product. You're helping them understand how to scale. You know how to work with founders, which is pretty rare for someone who's run big companies. And it's an epic opportunity to get into a company that's still, while proven, we were doing about 160 million in revenue that year over 4 years ago, but still with a lot of upside. We were growing at, bootstrapped, growing at well over 100% at that scale. And so, everything said, this is my ikigai, the Venn diagram of purpose and opportunity and impact and fulfillment. And I joined formally in November of 21 and joined the founder as president and COO, but effectively running the company. And then I stepped in as CEO. And over that window of 4 years, we've over 3x'd the business. It's been profitable for multiple years consistently. Moved it from single product, single channel to multi-product, multi-channel, now national and Costco. Another big retailer coming up very soon, moved into sleep with AG1 in addition to nutrients and gut health with AG1. And so now there's almost a refounding of the company for its next chapter to still be about simplifying supplement stacks and super high quality third-party certified. And we consolidate the supplements and the nutraceuticals, the herbs, the vitamins that work well together in a single step. And we're very good at making that into a drinkable routine that drives ritual, which helps adherence and consistency of high quality inputs drive felt benefits, and people are more likely to see research-backed benefits. And so we've just been doing a lot more of what the company was designed to do, doubling down on the core, strengthening our operating capabilities, setting up the opportunity to innovate, then launching the innovation, and now scaling the innovation is where we are.
AG1 to me is the poster child of less is more, potentially to an extreme where there has, for so much of the company's history, one product, one revenue channel. And when I think of your experience at Cinnabon and focus groups, I think part of what you led there was bringing innovation into some of those products and brands and having completely new products that sold in retail. And in this role at AG1, now you've started to very thoughtfully, very intentionally expand to a few new products. How did you weigh the extreme focus and discipline and quality that has allowed AG1 to have that amazing trust and brand with customers, while also knowing your customers frankly wanted more products?
I mean, it was just greatly driven by our customers and their experience. So when I first joined, again, we were growing at multiples, not percent, which is a big operating strain when you're in the hundreds of millions and you're growing at 2x, 2 to 3x. And it's a subscription, mostly subscription business. Most people drink this close to daily. And as a result, having it delivered where you want, when you want, is a more convenient and better value for something that's that high frequency. And people have drink it for years. And it's designed with a really high safety profile for consistent daily long-term use to cover foundational supplementation needs. And so as a result, a super majority of our customers are subscribers, which means whoever's buying today, you have to supply their compounding volume demands. I've got to supply last year's subscribers and this year's subscribers and 5 years ago subscribers. So the operating demand on supply chain, QA, redundancy, like what happens if something happens at one blending facility, you need another one. And when I joined, there was only one blending facility in New Zealand, and we were air freighting green powder to the United States.
That must have been cheap.
And so, I mean, it was brilliant because we were able to turn inventory into revenue. We were able to service demand. We were able to grow, but it was expensive.
Right.
And separate of being expensive, risky. If anything had happened,
dependency.
I have no backup. The team already had research and formulas and ideas for where the brand could go. Customers had been asking us for years for other products. So the roadmap was not the problem. It was the operating foundation that needed to be strengthened in the face of continued growth of the core product. So we needed to stand up US blending and manufacturing, which we did immediately. Multiple nodes so that we had redundancy. And there's so many benefits of that, separate of future tariffs that we could have never predicted, that we really didn't have much exposure to as a result. It was more about, if I'm blending it in the US, it's less expensive for transit. I can get it to customers faster. I get to use more of the shelf life instead of like flying it around the world. So there's all these quality and consistency requirements of a business scaling in that way. And that had to be our focus. So that was our focus for 2 years. Then it was clear that the customer and the category, which was growing, whether it's copycats or just bad actors, it was very clear that something more than just having proof of quality was going to be required for marketing, which was science, more human clinical trials. Every brand said they had research on their ingredients, but many of them didn't even have the ingredients they said they had in it. But when you're larger and you're growing and you need to have a stronger defense and more of a competitive moat, then you have to have layers of proof in this category. So second behind standing up operational supply resilience was a larger team of PhDs, more human trials, a budget for those, and it's expensive and it's lengthy and it takes years to conduct. So I had to prioritize investment there. So it's like operational capability, QA and quality, resilience, then additional layers of human trial research rigor, which was not common in the supplement space because of how expensive and intensive it is, and begin that journey. Then once I had both of those built, then we have earned our right to go to another channel. Then we've earned our right to make another thing because we've built this underlying capability that will allow future expansion to actually cut through. Every few years, we follow the science. We used to have flaxseed in AG1, and then research came out that said if you time that type of fiber with some of these vitamins, it can diminish bioavailability. Well, why would you pay for premium vitamins and then also have something in it that reduces the likelihood you get the full benefit of it? So we took it out. We made these upgrades, but because we were growing so quickly, there was a window where we didn't continue the upgrades because we just needed to meet the demand. So after we built the operating capabilities, built the human trial capabilities, then we implemented a long in process upgrade to the core formula. And we decided that would be the time when we would launch flavors for the first time. We were not just one product and not just one channel, but one flavor, which is bananas for a consumable product. One thing, one impossibly balanced flavor profile. And it was clear as we got bigger, there were people who had flavor fear. There were people who loved AG1, but were getting a little bored and wanted a little variety. So flavors were in line behind the upgraded formula and the human trials. And then we knew our customers, they were asking sleep, 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 help me with my sleep before anything else. And people asked for all kinds of things, but that kept rising to the top. We saw the same behavior that was behind the formulation of AG1. People were stacking different types of magnesium, certain herbs, and certain amino acids and minerals and bringing those together. So they were buying them separately, combining them inexactly, and not sticking with it consistently.
Yep.
So that is exactly what we did with AG1, multivitamin, pro and prebiotics, phytonutrients, put it together, take it consistently, covers nutrient gaps, supports gut health, add human trial, clinical proof, third-party certification. Got it. Same thing for AGZ. Combine that magnesium L-threonate and biglycinate, combine the ashwagandha and L-theanine, combine the myo-inositol and the glycine and the herbal blend in one thing, one scoop, third-party certified, NSF for sport, safe for professional athletes to take, and get that out into the world. Same philosophy, same capabilities, still solving a health pillar, but one is your anchoring morning routine for foundational health. The other is your anchoring evening routine for sleep, that are all still in service of waking up refreshed, right? Great. That was years in the making.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have done any of it too fast. And it was our customers who told us, this is what we want. This is what we value. But we made that commitment as a brand. Our customers told us it's this type of thing that sets you apart. So don't deviate from it, even if you bring me a new thing. So we have to keep grounding in what are our values, what are our principles, what are our guardrails, and where do we make an exception because we're stepping into a new scale, a new customer target. Eventually you tackle, you really penetrate a good bit of your immediate opportunity and move to the next ring out. And what those customers value may be slightly different. So you have to keep revisiting what matters to us and why, what allows us to remarry our core customer, but what is relevant to allow us to keep providing the highest quality solutions to the next group of customers that make sense.
I think in parallel to this sort of healthy tension between really preserving the quality of that initial product and the multiple iterations. I mean, 14, 15, I forget how many times, but so many iterations of that single product. There was also multiple rebrands of AG1. But there's tension in that too. I mean, you don't want to ostracize your sort of initial audience of early believers and make this feel like it's a lifestyle brand or something that doesn't speak to the athlete or the endurance. And so how have you been able to iterate on brand while sort of keeping that entire base and expanding into some additional new consumer archetypes or profiles?
One of the ways we were able to do that is, being direct to consumer, owning the relationship, and having the business be a daily health drink. The reality is most people, if that's in their lives, they just want that thing to stay that quality,
right,
that flavor, that experience. If we tweak the name, it's almost I don't care what you call me as long as you call me. Like, I don't care what you call yourself as long as you keep making this thing. That is different when you are on shelf. That is different when you are in other retailers and you have to build this distant familiarity. So we had an advantage in that the early days with our direct relationship of long-term repeat customers and an insane obsession over quality. As we evolved our packaging and our logo and eventually our name from Athletic Greens to AG1, there was permission to do that because we didn't change what really mattered. And we still had an almost enclosed ecosystem for those evolutions. The other is just those changes were also, they were deeply considered. AG1, the A and the G are a connection to the former name Athletic Greens. For a period of time, it was AG1 by Athletic Greens as a bridge. Because we had direct relationship with our subscribers and our customers, we could tell them about it. Here's our thinking. Here's why it's changing. Here's what's not changing. We did this when we were at 160 million in revenue. You can imagine the conversations are, oh gosh, we're getting so big. Like, should we really do this? It's never going to be a better time when you're bigger. So at some point you have to have the courage and a real commitment to the why. But we changed our name. The name of our website, the name of our store, the name of our entity. That was pretty bold. But we believed that we had, while Athletic Greens as a name had served us, created a category, to your earlier point, there were just so many knockoffs and lookalikes and people saying they were Judy's
Yep.
greens and Bubba's greens
Yep.
and kind greens. And at some point it then confuses the customer. And we knew we're so much more than greens. The greens are the phytonutrient piece. The whole food section is a chunk of the label. But what is equally, if not more important, is the multivitamin that is on the label and the pro and prebiotics that very specifically support gut health and other benefits. And so we also wanted to, zig when people zag and
Yep.
move out of this just a greens,
Mm.
because we really are the future of what the multivitamin was supposed to be, covering nutrient gaps and supporting gut health.
Supplements, probiotics, multivitamins, a category that arguably has garnered a decent amount of skepticism and
Definitely.
not a ton of trust. And I think in the wake of that, AG1 has built this incredible trust, this incredible community, that I think has given you permission to do the rebrand, introduce new products, which is very special. I'm sure there were moments during that hyperscale where maybe trust with the customer, either there was a hiccup or it broke. And I mean, trust is so hard to build with
Mhm.
consumers. And frankly, the easiest thing to decay if a few things sort of go awry. How did you act in those moments, and how have you been able to maintain consumer trust?
I mean, it's all the same answer. It's staying close to the customer. So when I first joined, this was still COVID tailwind, right? 2021, still
Yeah,
a lot of the challenges of COVID for businesses were in place. There was a massive supply chain crisis,
right.
massive, right? Because ports are shut down.
Yeah,
And so I remember joining the company and going really deep in our customer interviews, our customer calls, talking to customers myself. And I started picking up on these complaint patterns of leaking lids to our shaker bottle. And if you're not a customer of AG1, if you don't make something like this, you don't appreciate how big of a problem that is. It
yep,
is a green drink that you
yeah,
shake every morning.
yeah. It's gonna get
If you're wearing a white shirt, that's like a
yeah,
really bad situation. And
right, right,
it's
right.
your happy moment. It's your quiet moment. It's your
Yeah,
moment
it's your
to
ritual.
invest in yourself first thing in the morning. That is a really bad CX. So I heard it and then I heard it again. And it was very clear it was not rare, that it was a thing at this moment. And so I just started asking questions like, how many of these are we get? How many people are complaining? Because, there's the rule of however many you hear about, it's the tip of the iceberg. There's so much below. And then what are we doing to take care of it? And what I uncovered was it was much larger than we thought. But of course, when a business is growing that fast, the growth can cover a very real problem. You're like, all looks good from the outside, revenue growth and profitability growth and customer growth. But what's underneath are these things that absolutely need to be addressed. And that was one of them, like shaker lid gate. Um, and our customer service was so incredible. I'm like, what are we doing? And we're just sending them new shaker bottles. How many? Thousands per week. Thousands per week. And that was just the complaints and the solutions. That's not all the other stuff underneath. Um, and so that's an example of it's a paper cut. Getting to the problem was actually easy once we prioritized that it was worth fixing. And then coming up with a solution which moved us away from our previous plastic lids to a stainless steel lid that was heavier and thicker. It's now, much more of a brand icon
Yep,
as part of our brand experience. Even though it increases our cost tremendously,
yep,
it's worth it for quality. And then it
yep. And
became,
trust.
the brand look and feel. But it was this huge growing customer trust problem that just needed to be prioritized and solved.
Well, last question from me. How has your leadership changed and evolved over the different sort of career moments in your life? And as you think about the leader that you are today, how people would describe you, and where you feel sort of the biggest growth in your own leadership?
And the things that haven't changed and what would connect to how my style would be described is I'm still insanely close to the customer and the team. And for the most part, that is a superpower. Occasionally, that is annoying for the team. But for the most part, it's appreciated culturally, and it sets a tone of expectation of how we run our company and whose opinion do we care, what really matters, what's the signal versus the noise. And so that is consistent. This stay close to the action, stay very close to the reality of the customer today, not the memory of the customer last quarter or last month, and then pulling that into our prioritization and our decisions. How it's changed is, well, certainly when, I've been running companies for 16 years now as the CEO or president, several brands over that span.
Yep.
And
Different
certainly
brands, different maturities.
yeah. And then when I was the COO of Focus Brands, I managed 9 presidents and CEOs of brands. And so that was an interesting dynamic to manage a lot of me's, if you will. And so what has changed is that forces you to focus much more on quality and caliber of talent and match for what the company needs versus being in the weeds yourself. Being in the weeds of the work, it is still part of talent decision making and recruiting the right talent and structuring the organization in the right way so the talent can thrive and be as efficient and effective as possible. Still, being close to the action is a part of what informs that higher order responsibility. But what changed over time is realizing the answer isn't always me being more involved. The answer needs to be me holding that person accountable to be the leader they're supposed to be. So yes, I should be involved, but not to the point where I'm doing the job someone else should be doing. And so when you're a CEO managing other presidents and COOs and CEOs, that becomes a critical skill that's very different, when you're running a restaurant. If you're a manager running a restaurant, yes, your servers should do their job, but if one of them can't, you should absolutely be in there bringing the food to the table. Whether it's an exception or something that happens commonly, simply to help elevate the operation. When you're running companies that are run by other leaders, there's a real focus on making sure those leaders have what they need to do their role, that they are the person for the job for what the company needs now and next, and that they can do their best work, that their work is getting done there. So the focus has shifted in the last, 15, 16 years.
Kat, I'm so excited to continue to follow and learn from your career and just see the impact that AG1 has in the nutrition category. Thanks so much for being with us. Loved having you here.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it for today's episode of the Maverick Mindset. At Mavron, we've always believed in partnering with founders who are defining culture. If you're one of them, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us at mavron.com.